hand over to Tamara as part of our CSO team. Those of you that do go on Twitter and do LinkedIn, I implore you, follow Tamara. Some of the stuff that she's pushing out there is really impressive and really salient to what we're trying to achieve globally. Tamara.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Running up the down escalator is our topic this morning. Did you ever try to run up an escalator that is coming down? Whoever tried this?
Yeah.
How's the feeling?
It's tough.
It's tough. It's a hard thing to do because you have to consistently keep moving. If you pause for a moment, you find yourself back at the bottom of the escalator again in a hurry. So if you want to move forward, it takes a lot of extra effort. If you pause for a moment, every progress you have made is wiped out in a few seconds. So you either move forward or you move backward. There is no standstill. And that has a lot to do with being in a sales organization, having a leading function in a sales organization. We cannot pause for a moment. Imagine you pause for a month or a quarter or 6 months to develop your salespeople skills, to provide the right content, the right messaging for them, or to improve your sales process landscape, to look after the latest technology. What is the result for your sales performance? Must it take you up or down? Down. Exactly. And this data point will illustrate you why this is the case. This is the down escalator in sales nowadays. Byron already mentioned this. It's the quota attainment that is going down for many years. Look at the 63% in 2011, 2012, and we have measured now the lowest quota attainment ever, with 53% measured this year. We are looking at CSO Insights at many different sales performance metrics for many years, and this is the strongest trend that's going down. So we have to start to run up the down escalator, and we should do that faster and better than our competitors. And this is what we want to cover today. However, we have world-class performers around us who achieve much better results, who are already in a segment again of 63 or more % of salespeople achieving quota. And they're already on this journey to run up the down escalator faster and better than others. So, well, I want to welcome again. What we are going to cover today is, for the first time ever, we will look at our 2017 CSO Insight Sales World-Class Practices Study. And we have done a few things differently this year. So who is familiar with the Sales Best Practices Study? A lot of you. Great. Who is familiar with the Sales Relationship Process Matrix? You've seen it in Byron's presentation. Excellent. So we will connect the dots of this, and it means we have adjusted some of the approaches to actually provide you with richer insights and more details that are more actionable for you. So I will make the first part very quickly because it was already covered. I just present you the latest data from this year. So you have seen the matrix, and it has already been defined this morning. I don't do that again. It's just a very helpful tool, and also as we gather data for many years now around the sales process relationship matrix, it's just interesting to see how stable the trends are, even if the business environment is changing a lot. So the correlation between process maturity, which is actually covering your sales system, and how you develop your salespeople, what content and knowledge and messages you provide to them, that has a lot to do with the performance level you can achieve. So I would like to invite you to Michael Hopke's workshop in the afternoon. He will work with you specifically to determine where you currently are, where you want to go and how to get there, so what your next required actions could be. These are the 2017 results, so they are pretty similar to the 2016 results. There are two things that have changed. One is that the good news is that a few organizations made it from performance level 1 to 2. That's good news. And a few others wrote down the escalator from performance level 3 to 2. So we have a bigger percentage in the middle and performance level 2. And what's also new is we have a few that are over here, which is quite interesting. That means there is definitely an unbalance between investing in sales process and technology and not leveraging that in enablement activities to work with salespeople to improve their activities, to improve their behaviors, to achieve higher level of relationships. We will talk about that in more detail later. The money chart, 2017 results, please feel free to use it. These are the different results for the 7 key metrics we always measure with the SRP matrix: revenue plan attainment, quota attainment, win rate, loss rate, and no decisions. All of these 3 for forecast deals. And for the first time this year, we looked at turnover in a different way. We looked at involuntary and voluntary turnover. Please feel free to use the data if you have to create business cases for improvement measures for sales process, technology, or sales enablement investments. So that is definitely worth to include it. If you prefer a visual representation, I've put together the 3 key metrics: revenue plan attainment, win rate, and quota attainment on the chart. So you can easily identify what's the percentage difference between performance level 1 and 3. What I've done for you, I've put together what's the actual improvement. And that is quite significant. So we've seen that in your case from Atos, you made a big improvement in your win rate. So I think 63 was where you ended up, which is really an excellent result. And you can see that here. So for quota attainment, there is an actual improvement of 27.7%, and for win rates, 29%. So the right combination, the right balance of investing in your sales system, in the process landscape and technology, and working with your sales force to develop their skills and provide the right knowledge, and also to leverage your sales managers' coaching skills, to bring that in the right balance, that leads to towards performance level 3. That was the foundation, what we included this year for the first time in our world-class sales practices study. Now we come to the world-class approach this year. So world-class performers, so first of all, what is world-class? This would tell world-class? I think so. How was your golf experience yesterday? World-class? Okay, I think so. I've seen shining faces yesterday at the reception, so it was definitely a lovely afternoon for some of you. So what world-class performers do all the time is they work hard and smart, and they focus in a very consequent way on those practices that impact their performance. And it also means they have no time for random activities and for nice-to-have distractions. One of the key components what we see in world-class segments year by year. So this is how we got to world-class. So first of all, thank you for all those of you who have taken the big survey. I know it has taken some time. So we asked you about how well do you focus on different practices. We had more than 60 practices, behaviors in that survey. We mapped all of them against these 7 performance metrics in the sales relationship process matrix. We wanted to know what are the practices that impact these performance metrics. The more, the better. And we also wanted to know how statistically significant is the result. We came up with a set of 12 practices, and we really could say that those practices impact your performance in a significant way because they impact between 5 and 7 of the metrics. of the KPIs. And I think that is a lot. Here you go. That is the overview chart of these top 12 practices. I will walk you through the different practices in a minute. Just important for you to know also what has changed compared to last year is that we mapped these practices to the process dimension or to the relationship dimension of the metrics simply by the fact, where is the primary impact? Is a practice primarily impacting the process maturity or the relationship levels you're trying to achieve? And you can see here, these are the correlation significance scores. You see here, the more the better. That's why we numbered them from 1 to 12. So now the next question is, what are the organizations, what are the world-class performers that actually focus on these 12 practices? And our criteria was we identified those study participants who reported to collectively and consistently focus on these 12 practices, at least at 10 out of these 12. That was the criteria, what we've defined. The question becomes, how many world-class performers we actually had? So what is the percentage of the world-class segment? And this takes us to our poll. So if you could go to this session and you will find one poll in here. And the question is, what do you think? How big is this world-class segment in this study? Is it smaller than 5%? The study participants, it is between 5 and 10%, or is it even bigger, more than 10% of the studied population? Okay. That's interesting. So we're growing. Oh, wow. Yeah, so 50% got it right. It is between 5 and 10% of the study participants. So thank you for taking the poll. It is 6.9% of the overall study population who qualify for this world-class segment, and that means they practice at least 10 of these 12 practices on a Likert scale from 1 to 7 with a 6 or a 7. The next question, that is the third step of our world-class approach, is then to say, okay, if they do this, and we have seen there is such a strong correlation significance between the performance results, so what are the performance results of this world-class segment? And that is what we have here. So another money chart. So you see the 6.9% of this overall study population pie is not a big slice. But you can see that they really outperform all others in a quite significant way. So if you look specifically at quota attainment, 69.8% compared to the 53. I mean, that is a huge difference. Look at win rates, 57 versus 46.9. That means the 46.9 is around the Las Vegas gambling level, and 57% is definitely a difference. And also turnover is interesting. So the better performing the organization is, of course, the less voluntary turnover you have. If you prefer a visual representation, I actually do. So these are all the 7 metrics of our SRP mapped to these 12 practices. So you see world-class really makes a difference. Also here, feel free to use the data and to use the charts if you have to create business cases and to convince your sales leaders. So now let's have a look. You want to take another look at the chart? I've just seen you doing this. Just do it. So now let's look a bit more focused on these 12 practices. So what is it actually the study participants in this world-class segment are doing differently, and where is their focus? So let's first look at all the practices that impact primarily the relationship dimension, so to build better and more valuable relationship with prospects and clients. The first one is our salespeople consistently and effectively articulate a solution that is aligned to the customer's needs. So that has a lot to do with working backwards from the customer's context, from their situation, from their desired business needs, and really tailoring a solution that is the best for them. The next one is a customer experience practice, and we have a few in here, so that's also an increasing trend. We deliver a consistent customer experience which lives up to and aligns with our brand promise. So this is a practice that has a lot to do with how well aligned an organization's overall messaging is, from marketing to sales to service. Now, it's not only sales and marketing alignment, messaging also has to be aligned with a service organization to get to such a result. Number 3, our salespeople consistently and effectively communicate appropriate value messages that are aligned to our customers' and prospects' needs. So that is a specific value messaging practice, and I cannot hammer home that enough how important that is. So the times when it was good enough to have a value prop, they are over. It's not working. Value messaging has to follow a dynamic approach. Value messages have to be tailored to the different phases of the customer's journey and to the different buyer roles. So you need different messaging to the same problem if you talk to a finance-focused role compared to a program management role. If your prospect is in a situation that they're just trying to understand the problem and the situation and not even sure what the real impact of the situation is they find themselves in, you don't want to communicate specific value props around your products and services. It's way too early. They don't understand what you're talking about. It's like talking in two different levels. So value messaging is really very important to get this right, and that is a Salesforce enablement's responsibility to orchestrate all these efforts here. Customers have consistently positive interactions with us regardless of which channels they use to work with us. That's a challenge to harmonize the customer experience across different sales channels. So especially with those of you who is working with channels, then you probably know that this is a huge challenge to get this right. So it's one of these practices that definitely impact the relationship level. Our sales teams are efficient at surfacing the specific reasons why certain customers stop doing business with us. That's also the criteria for world class, not to just, okay, we lost them, we go somewhere else. It's really understanding what was the problem to get better every single day. And the last one on the top 6 relationship practices is we are effective at selling value to avoid discounting or gaining comparative value in return for price concessions. So that sums up a lot of different things, from making a really solid discovery phase to working backwards from all these different stakeholders that are involved in a deal, up to the right level and tailoring of value messaging, to them being able to provide a tailored solution. It really makes a difference for them and helps them to achieve their desired results. These are the top 6 practices that focus, that impact primarily the relationship level. Now let's go to the top 6 that impact primarily the process dimension. First one, we continually assess why our sales performers are successful. So every organization knows who the top performers are, but why they are top performers is very often a challenging question to really understand. What's a combination of attitude, of skills, of culture, of knowledge, of expertise, of fluency, of adaptive skills, to figure that out. And world-class performers do that because they want to optimize, of course, their hiring profiles. What is the talent we are looking for? When we lose a salesperson for whatever reason, we consistently determine the reasons why. That's just a similar practice we have seen on the relationship level. We want to understand that on a customer dimension, and we want to understand that across our sales force. We effectively collect and share best practices across our sales and service organizations. That is a cultural thing on one hand side. It has a lot to do with being encouraged by sales and service managers across the teams to do so. And it's, of course, a question of having the right technology to be able to do that. So all kinds of sales enablement, content management solutions, collaboration tools are excellent if the culture and the right attitude is in place to support that in the best way possible. Our sales managers are held accountable for the effective use of sales tools and resources by the sales force. So that's again a focus on the key role in any sales organizations, and that is the frontline or first-line sales managers. So they have to be involved in all kinds of strategic initiatives you're running in your organization, because they have to ensure that implementation happens at the front line. Our culture supports continuous development of salespeople and sales leaders. It's a cultural question, has a lot to do. We know that we depend on the skills, the attitude, and the knowledge, expertise of our people, and we continually invest in them. And as part of our performance review process, our organization consistently develops and ensures implementation of personalized performance improvement plans. So that's a practice. It's also important because although coaching is the most important skill for a sales manager, especially for frontline sales managers, there are situations where performance management has to take place, and doing that in the most tailored way possible is a world-class practice. So now the question becomes, we've seen the sales relationship process matrix with the 2017 results. So that means we've seen where are study participants when we look at their process maturity and the relationship level they currently have. And now we've identified the 12 practices, and that's what world-class performers do. And we have also seen that they have significantly different and better performance results. So the question is, how do these things play together? So at one level, the process dimension is really all about your sales system. This is like building a house. You have to have a solid foundation. If you buy an old house, you have to refurbish it if you want to enjoy it later on. You have to focus on that infrastructure, on the sales system to get the foundation right. It has to do with sales methodology, with sales process, with the integration of both. It has to do with infrastructure, with technology, with analytics, to really getting into a situation that you have integrated different technologies, enablement technology, learning technology into CRM systems, and that you have a very mature sales process maturity. So that is simply your foundation. And then whatever you do with your sales force, you develop salespeople skills, you develop your sales managers, you provide the right content, you focus on the right messaging, you help them to develop more expertise and fluency. All these enablement activities, they are much more effective if they can be connected to a solid foundation. So if that's not the case, and you have a random process around, you cannot connect the dots to nothing. That means your enablement initiatives are in the middle of nowhere, and that's not the place to make them effective. So in terms of functions, so the process dimensions is pretty much what sales operations, sales management has to put in place. And what's the result in higher level of relationships? These are all the activities Salesforce enablement has to take care of. That means to provide integrated training, content, and coaching services to get there. So that's just for you an overview how these things really make sense together and play together. So now we have seen two big concepts. I tried to make that as simple as possible for you to connect the dots. And now the question is probably already in your mind. How would it look like if we put the world-class segment on top of the SRP? Who is thinking about that? What do you think? Where do we end up?
They're in the green section.
We all thought so. It is interesting. It's a cloud that looks like this. This is our world-class segment. We looked exactly as some of you when we analysts had the data for the first time, till we really, it made sense out of it. So to understand this, we'll have to go back, and this is why I presented these two concepts in greater detail, because if we identify where people are regarding their performance level, we look at their sales process maturity and we look at their relationship level they currently have with their customers. That means we do not look at what they are doing. We don't look at the practices when we define the SRP current state. And then in the SRP, we look at the performance metrics, and we simply see that the more you're here, the more you're here, the more you're in the green area, the better is your performance. That makes sense for many reasons. And the world-class practices approach, it's not looking at the process maturity, and it's not looking at the current relationship. It's just looking what are the practices that impact the performance metrics in the most significant way. And now, the reason for this result is context matters. Your business context matters a lot. So that means one example is if you have a very small organization, a very small business, 1, 2, 3, 4 salespersons, they might have a random approach. If you have a consultancy, you provide services that are of strategic relevance for your prospect and customers, but you can still be very successful where these 2 or 3 salespeople have very different approaches. So you can be here and very successful. At this point in time, with attention, this is not scalable. You cannot grow your business like this. That's this example. And the message of that is randomness is not scalable. However, you can be successful right now. Another example is a large organization with commoditized products. Let's say they're producing paper or screws or nails, highly commoditized. So they have to invest a hell of a lot in their process maturity to automate whatever they can automate. This is a company that has probably everything on an online shop, on the website. Salespeople are not so very important in that organization, to be honest. Maybe channel. Service is very important here. So they have to automate a lot. But the products they offer, if you're honest, they have no strategic relevance for the customer. So they were limited by their product portfolio probably here at a preferred supplier. They can definitely get up from an approved vendor to a preferred supplier if they're good and deal with vendor management. But they will have a hard time to become a solution consultant if they have these commoditized products. But that is a scalable approach, because if they buy another company that has more services that are of strategic relevance for their customers, they have already built a foundation and the process and technology maturity to grow to this client relationship level. That is the big difference, and that is also why we see the world-class segment looks like a cloud on top of the SRP. Yeah? It gives you a lot of ideas on how to play with this tool and how to use it, and also to see where is my current position? Is that scalable? Is that sustainable? Yes or no? And where should I go? And how do I get there? So that's why I recommended Michael Hopke's workshop to work in more detail on that. So we already come to the takeaways. So first of all, we have seen the SRP holds true. So performance level 1 is not a sustainable place to be, definitely not if you want to grow your business. We have seen a few moved up to level 2, and we have also seen that a few wrote down the escalator from 3 to 2 in the 2017 study. And then we have an adjusted and refined approach for our world-class practices. We connected them to the matrix of the SRP. We have seen that 6.9% is a small but very fine world-class segment, and we have seen that they achieve statistically really significant performance and the difference. We've seen that. And we've connected the two concepts together, and we have seen, no, they're not all in the green area. So world-class is actually a cloud on top of the SRP matrix. if we have time for a few questions and answers, not sure we can do that. If not, you will get the report as a follow-up of this conference. So you will find that in your inbox early next week, I guess. Thank you very much.